I'm Ashley. Welcome to the Ashley Dean Show and happy October. I feel like this is maybe the best month of the year, even though I love the summer. And for this month, I have brought in someone that you've already met last season, my brother Trey. And in addition, we are bringing in his wife, my sister-in-law, Heidi. So I'm really excited for them to share their life experiences with us and just kind of connect them to some, I don't know, some things that we learn and grow from every day, which is what we're talking about this season on the Ashley Dean Show. So, welcome, Trey.
Hello, thank you for having us. I'm going to be looking at myself the entire time.
We're excited to be here, and I'll be looking at you too.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, I'll be staring at
I
you
know.
also. Yes. Welcome. So, this is Trey, my brother. And if you remember from last time, he was very upset that he was not the first one on because he is just younger than I am. So, I brought on Mikey. But I will say this year we did the same, or this season, only because they were traveling through. They were traveling through, and so they were in person.
Excuse.
So we have Trey and Heidi remotely from their home in northern
West
Utah.
Jordan.
I always forget the city. Salt Lake City, West Jordan.
Like-ish.
Yeah,
Like adjacent.
yes, adjacent. So, and also I'd like to introduce to you Trey's wife, Heidi Taliaferri.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yes, so exciting, so exciting. So, I wanted to this month, I wanted to share a little bit. I've been talking like, we'll not make it about me, but a little about me. I started with my growing up in gymnastics and what I learned from that. And then what I kind of learned next from that is education and going to school and kind of learning and all of those different things. And next for me in my life path was all of those things I feel like led me to serving a mission. And so I was kind of liking the transition of Trey coming in next because if you didn't know this, Trey and I served our missions at the same time. However, he left before I did, and I came home before he did. So, kind of a cool little thing there. I served for 18 months. Women serve or girls serve for 18 months, and the guys serve for 24 months. So, when Trey decided to go on his mission and got all of his things ready, I wasn't thinking about it, or at least I didn't tell anyone that I was thinking about it. But after he left the MTC, or after we left the MTC from dropping him off, it was just like a ton of bricks, cliche on my head. It's your mission now. So I decided to serve my mission and I left maybe like 4 months later. So yeah, crazy.
Comment on this?
I can't hear you.
I don't want to make this about me on my podcast, Ashley Dean podcast. Anyway, do you want me to talk about that experience?
Well, I that's my life experience that I'm gonna share. Like there was a little part, I know I'm not really explaining this very well, but there was a time on my mission that I feel like was kind of like pivotal for me going forward in my life. And I was sitting in the car with my companion and we were looking, we had our huge area book like in the binders. I don't know if you had those. Now everything's online and it's so easy. Like the sisters have phones and it's all so streamlined. But we were searching and looking through this whole map of our huge area. So I served in Cleveland, Ohio. And so we had really large areas. I guess I don't know, lots of missions have large areas, but ours was like one ward, but it took forever to get from one end of the ward to the other end of the ward. And so I'm thinking, I'm sitting there staring at this book and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of people. And I think we were in like a grocery store and I just like looked around at the people that were there. And I just remember thinking, we are charged with inviting all of these people to learn about our faith and to invite them to come into Christ. And I just remember this like feeling came over me and it was like, you see that guy right there? Heavenly Father loves him just as much as he loves you. And it was like, I know how much Heavenly Father loves me. Like I have through my life experience that were very limited and I'm very young, I know like deeply how much he loves me. And so I felt this huge like wow, everyone has a different path. Everyone is going different ways. And it helped me kind of love people in a more deep and spiritual way. Because it wasn't that I automatically saw them as the Savior did or Heavenly Father, but I knew that each of them were loved so much and that we were all like God's children. And so for me going forward, it was helpful. It was like, this person's not annoying, they are, but there's like something outside of this that like we can learn from. And I'm here just to invite them to learn about the Savior. I'm not like some missionaries or some people think you go out and you're like forcing people and doing all these things. I'm just there to invite them and to tell them what I feel, that Heavenly Father loves them so much. And so I feel like I was serving my mission the same time Trey was serving the mission. I swear we wrote emails back and forth and Trey kept the RE going for like the entire 2 years. I remember
Is that your goal? That seems like something that would be his goal.
it was just so funny. It was like RE for 2 years. So I remember just kind of emailing him back and forth, and it was a cool foundational experience that I was able to have. And so I'm excited to hear your life experiences from any time of your life. I'm kind of leaving it open-ended. I just want to hear what you guys, part of your life could be the past, I don't know, today, together,
Time we have for
whatever you
today.
think you feel like you want to share.
I feel like
Say that
Trey
again. I
remembers
can't really hear
Trey remembers every single thing I
everything.
feel like in his life. So I don't know how in the world he will ever choose just like one life experience. Because anybody who's met Trey, luckily he's so quick to forgive, but he also remembers every single thing that has ever happened to him.
So talking about memories, I don't know. I want to go back to the mission when you were deciding to go on a mission,
Yeah.
right? So it's always like the church is always saying that young men should serve missions, but they don't really at that time push for women to serve missions as well. So I don't think it was ever in your orbit. And honestly, I didn't think it ever would be. I was like, yeah, well, whatever. She doesn't have to go. She doesn't want to. And when I got to the MTC, you get letters, but like there's no email at the time that we were getting MTC. So I was getting tons of letters from everyone but you and dad. And it was like, Mikey was like, or Ashley wants to serve a mission, but dad is like really being really weird about it. And was just saying all these things about like, I'm like, what is going on? And then finally got a letter from you. It was like, I've been thinking about going on a mission, but I think dad's not really happy about me going on a mission or something like that. And then a week later, I get a letter from dad being like, I don't know why people think that I wouldn't want my children's spiritual desires to be number one or something like that. That's kind of he doesn't talk like that, but
It's pretty deep.
uh,
Yeah,
it
maybe.
was just it was funny because I got information in little pieces through Emma and Mikey and mom. Emma was like 10,
Yeah.
and Mikey was like a sophomore, freshman in high school, and mom is very uh passive and not direct. So yes, she's not like, I don't know, blah blah blah. So I didn't really understand what the heck was going on. And I was like, whatever. And then finally you were like, I'm gonna go on a mission. And then you were like, I got my mission papers. I'm going to Ohio. And then the best part was you said, and where in Italy is Ohio? Well, let me tell you, it's not because you kept
I
saying,
don't
I
know.
want to go to Italy, want to go to, and I was like, don't put it out there
Yeah.
because the Lord's not going to give you exactly what you want. I don't know why I thought that when it's like ask.
That's the
That's the
opposite of life
opposite of
and
what the Lord is
reality.
asking, but it's like you're not supposed to say that because then he'll know, and this is supposed to be hard and difficult. And it's like and I was like, well, you kept saying it, now you got to go to Ohio.
I know. And it was crazy because my friend had just gotten back from her mission to Italy. And
Yeah,
like I didn't plan going on a mission like to go to Italy, but she put it in my head. She was like,
yeah.
"You're totally gonna go to Italy because I just left. So there
Oh
needs to
yeah,
be like a
she was
replacement,
gonna
and that's
replace.
gonna be you." And I was like, "Oh no, you're right. I'm totally going there." And so yeah, I it turned out to be the best for me because I got to serve in church history sites, which actually was, I feel like, more of where I needed to be than
Cool.
Cleveland. So yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
hindsight is always 2020. But yeah, definitely. I
yeah.
cried when I got my mission call. So yeah.
Were you
Now
close to
tears of
Cincinnati?
happiness. What?
Did you ever go? Is Cincinnati a different mission?
It's a different mission. Yeah, but I
Okay.
remember you were like, what did you say? Cleveland rocks from the Drew
Oh
Carey.
yeah, from the Drew Carey show.
The Drew Carey show. But yeah, that was like a difficult because it wasn't that a mission was in my orbit, but it was. I remember my senior year of college, and it was like I talked to my bishop about it. I never told anybody, but I was like,
Oh,
I really feel like I want to do it, and the answer was just like, man, keep doing what you're doing. And so I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not going on a mission. Like, okay, whatever, I'll keep going and doing my thing. And then it was just, it's all about timing. So I'm glad it was a
hi,
cool
baby.
experience. Oh,
We got a special guest
oh,
here.
hello,
What was your name?
My name is Fallon.
And what's your
Fallon.
name?
I don't know.
Say
He's
thank
like,
you. Goodbye.
Thank you, goodbye. I want another treat.
you want a treat? You got it, babe. Oh,
That was Fallon.
she's
Okay,
how old's Fallon? She's 6.
Fallon just turned 6 in July.
Cutie.
Right? Yeah. Okay, where were we? Also, when you were in the MTC the same time as Tate, and you're like, I saw Tate, and I was like, Tate didn't tell me he was going on a mission as well, because it was like Tate, he just it wasn't in his orbit as well at the time, and then he went.
And then I guess you're
I was
the
like-
one that just got everybody going. You're like,
I
I'm
was like a
going.
bunch of people I'm very close to not telling me about the biggest thing in my life.
It's an intimidating thing to like do
Is
that.
it to write a
So,
letter
yeah.
and say, Dear Trey,
No, not to tell
Guess
you
what?
to go on a mission, you do this.
I'm going on a mission
Going on a
because
mission.
you are the inspiration, and you were, because of your example, I am serving the
You
Lord.
bring meaning to my life. You're the inspiration. Little did they know they're coming here for a Heidi karaoke session.
I
We can't
love
use that due to
it. That was
copyright.
really good tunes. You got like good.
I didn't know we were going with that for a minute.
I know nothing about music, but yes, hilarious.
Well,
So
this is, yeah, go ahead. What else? What else you got?
no, are you ready to share? Anybody? I don't want to force you, but if it comes, let it come.
We're sharing moments in our life, like
Yeah.
memories. Heidi has a
Anything.
memory.
Something
Tell us
I
to
feel like
share.
something that was like pivotal that you look back on. Like I look back on that experience a lot, especially
Heidi, tell
when
them about the dog.
No, the thing that I thought of, Ashley, when you first said, and I probably way overthought this and way overanalyzed it when you asked us to come on the show, but the thing that I thought of that has really changed my life is taking an opportunity to go out to New York City and work out there when I was really young. And I was feeling really brave going out. And then we had a layover in Chicago. And that's when it became real for me. And I realized I don't know anybody in New York City. I don't know what I'm doing. I've been there one time, right? Like, and I don't know how to take the subway. I don't know anything. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And then when we got there, I was sleeping on an air mattress because I didn't have a bed or like anything because, just moved out there with my suitcases and was living it. And that first night, I've never been a scared person. Like I'm pretty outgoing, right? Like I'm not scared of a lot. I try a lot of new things, but that night I cried myself to sleep. Like I was so terrified of what was to come. And I realized like after I woke up that next morning and I figured out how to get to work and all these things, after that entire experience of doing this hard thing, I realized I could do anything. And that's what I feel like that experience taught me was if I can go to New York and make it in New York for 2 years, then I can do anything. And because of that, I feel like now I'm not as scared and I'm not as intimidated. I mean, I'm intimidated by things, but I feel like that experience, I look back on it all the time when I'm trying something new or, talking to someone new that's intimidating. I just think, you know what? I made it in New York City. I can do anything. And made it to me, right? It's not actually making it in New York City. Like some of these people actually make it in New York City. But
no, like doing
Yes.
a life and like a new thing in a new city is hard. So yeah, that's isn't
Especially
there a
that kind of
song? They
city,
made a
though.
song about that.
There is a song that Frank Sinatra sings.
oh,
Famous.
I'll sing that next. No, but
Most famous song in the world.
yeah, and I think something, I've been thinking a lot about with as my nephews and nieces are growing up and they're becoming young adults and leaving home. is how important opportunity is as a young adult and throughout our entire lives. And I think of you, Ashley, like you're going out there and you are taking opportunities even as an adult. And like things that a lot of people think, oh, I'm too old to try something new or blah blah blah. Like I just think any opportunity that we jump in and we take, um, God helps us, right? Like I jumped out to New York City and God helped me to succeed as far as I wanted to or could or whatever. And I just feel like that's such an important life lesson that I wish I could pass down or pass around to other young adults is like if you're too scared, it won't happen, right? Like fear will seriously debilitate you and it will hold you back. And the best thing that you can do is just jump in to opportunities and never think you're too good for anything. Because that's the other thing that I learned after New York was never be too good for any job. If you're too good for a job, then you're probably not going to get the next best thing, right? Because nobody jumps in being worth $150,000 a year and knowing everything that they should know to be that qualified for a job. So my next experience, and I'm sorry to dominate this, but I feel like
Please
so
this.
after New York, I went out to Las Vegas and I went to UNLV and went to grad school, and then I was trying to find a job. And the job that I really wanted was a job in politics. And I was over here thinking like, oh, I'm going to help shift the Republican Party, and I'm going to help them see that Republicans aren't these weirdos that are racist and all these things, right? Because I was young. And so I found a job that they wanted me to run their social media, which was perfect. I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. But then once I got there, the job wasn't really ready for me. And they were like, well, really, can you just answer phones? And I did. I did it because I thought, you know what? When am I going to get another chance to at least have my foot in the door? And I learned from that experience. Now I've been in the industry for 20 years and I worked my way up because I wasn't too good for anything. And I wasn't too good to be a receptionist at the front desk and just really take opportunity, right? I took that opportunity and later they ended up asking me to start my own business and they were feeding me clients and like it's crazy what God will do for you when you will just put yourself out there and just like jump and take a chance. So I just wanted to share those as my two experiences. I think they're both geared around the word opportunity for me.
Yeah, no, those are perfect. Yeah, thank you for sharing those. I love it. And so like through the course, Heidi, of building your business, you met my brother.
Yeah, so while I was out in Las Vegas, 10 years I think I was out there. I met
Oh,
Trey, I
okay.
think 8 or 9 years into it, 8 years into it probably. I'd worked for quite a while and we met when we were 29. Just at like a Buffalo Wild Wings. Some people were watching a game, like friends of friends. So, yep, that's where I met him. And it's funny. Part of that story is that when I was trying to get out of New York and I realized it was my time to move on, I really thought that I was going to get into some really cool school like NYU or Columbia. And I applied to NYU, Columbia, University of Utah, and UNLV. And UNLV was just my backup. And it was the only school I got into. But it was also the only school that offered me a TA opportunity that helped me pay for school. And and so I was really devastated that that was the only place I got into because I'd swore to myself I would never live there. But I think that it all works out, right? That job opportunity and then meeting Trey would have never happened otherwise.
I love that.
Go Rebels.
So like all the plan, everything is working. Yes.
So I went to UNLV school film,
Yes.
and it was my first choice, my
Yeah.
only choice.
That's so cool. I love these because we're learning so much. I'm learning so
You,
much.
you're learning so much about us. You didn't know that about Heidi?
I knew that about you. I didn't know that about Heidi.
Yeah, the Heidi. Yeah, she got her master's there. When
I
I
knew
met
she got her
Heidi,
master's there, but I didn't know all of the. It's just
oh,
crazy how like life works like that. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
like yeah, it's like it was meant to be for you to be in Las Vegas, even though you're like, this is the last place I want to be.
it's funny. I feel bad because all these things happen. Heidi's like, this is how it happens, supposed to happen.
Yeah.
She's doing all of these shoots and ladders, and I just stayed put the whole time.
Stop
Like,
it.
you have to come to me.
Seriously though, but I'm so
Come to
glad
me.
that he did, right? I always use the analogy of I feel like God was pinballing me around. You know, pinball machines, how they're just whacking the ball around. I totally feel like that's my life. And luckily, Trey was the little chute where you get pinballed around and then you get shot out, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love that
I'm
analogy.
just here, bump on the log. Come get me.
Oh,
Can you come pick me up from school today?
no, I'm so
My
lucky.
car disintegrated. I need your car.
We're running out of time, but something funny too. Sorry to keep taking the mic from you. But something funny about Trey and I is we had a lot of situations when we were both living in Las Vegas that we were in the same place at the same time and never connected. Like we were at the same parties, we had, some
And
friends
you
of
guys have a
friends.
ton of mutual friends that you like didn't
Yes,
connect or know. Isn't that weird? That is,
it's unreal.
Yeah,
yeah.
there was
The
there was one
timing.
time that our singles wards, so our single ward, Bishop Rick, at the time wanted to do a thing where he would pick like the top 5 brothers
Oh
in the
no, I
ward.
don't want to know how
And
to
he
do
would have the other one
the
pick the top
top
five
five.
sisters, and then they would have a dinner together. And I was sitting there and I was like, in no way do I want to be a part of this. And I was kind of dating somebody, and
Okay.
so I was like, okay, this is my out. Okay. And then they hired mom and dad to cater that dinner. And I bought tickets to Jerry Seinfeld. And like I said, I was kind of dating someone, kind of. I wasn't dating them enough to buy 2 tickets. I bought one for myself. And so I was like, going to Jerry
I
Seinfeld.
love,
He was
dude. I just
$120.
love.
That was expensive. He was at the Palace. And
A pretty big
um,
deal, yeah.
I was out the door, and one of the bishopric members came in and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to see Seinfeld." And he's like, "But we're having that dinner thing." And I was like, "I'm not going to that." And he got the food from mom and dad and then left, and then went to the dinner, and Heidi was at that dinner.
Of course.
I'm sorry, but I have to interject that it
Yes,
was
please.
10 women from our ward that were incredible girls. Only 2 men from that other group from Trey's ward showed up, and we were ticked because we didn't want to go, and the bishop like pushed it so hard, and it ended up just being so.
I'm feeling like I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do whatever, and then these dudes didn't even show up. Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
wow.
and I ate at least 25 caprese skewers.
That mom and dad made. He's
We
like,
had
"These are good,
lunchies.
but this thing was
We had
horrible."
lunchies, so I am there with you. You guys, though, I have to give you both props because I remember, like in my prayers, I was like, Heavenly Father, if I have to go to a singles ward to meet someone, I will not meet someone. So I never went to a
Oh yeah,
singles ward. So I give you guys props. I never wanted to go.
yeah.
We didn't even
Sorry,
meet each other there.
we didn't
Good
meet
for
each other
you.
there. We met each other at Buffalo Wild Wings, like she said. Asian zing. You can't have it because it's got gluten. So, like Ashley said earlier, uh, a lot of my childhood was me going to Ashley's meets, like early childhood stuff, and it was constantly going to these constant gymnastics,
Constantly.
constantly practice, meet, practice, 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 meet, practice, meet. Like
It's true. I, and this is funny too. I mean, like I talked about my experience as a gymnast growing up, and Trey was always at my competitions. And there are so many things he remembers that I have no recollection. Like no idea that happened at all.
know exactly how to get to the Flyers gym,
Yeah.
that's non-existent next to the carpet guy. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
the carpet's like this.
yeah, so
Yeah.
used to doing it, and so and in gymnastics, when you're watching for somebody, it's kind of boring because you're sitting there waiting for them to do their event. And
Yeah.
so there's a
You have to
lot
watch
of events
everybody
going
else.
on, and then like your person's not doing it. So people are looking over at the uneven. I said under even bars, uneven bars, and then you look at the vault and the floor and then the rings. You don't do rings.
No, we don't do it.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, so the vault was the best. No, was it the vault? Yeah, the horse. What's it? What when you jump off the spring into the vault,
Yeah, that's
right?
the vault. It's also
Okay,
called the horse. It's not that
the
anymore,
horse.
but we called it the horse, but it's a
Yeah,
vault. Yeah.
yeah. So we got okay. So I'm watching this girl, and I'm far away, and this sport is ridiculous. You run as fast as you can, and you jump on the spring, and propels you to the air, and then you touch the horse and do multiple flips in the air, which is great. You're going as fast as you can, but if you jump too far and miss the springboard completely, your momentum takes you chest first into the horse, into the vault. And this poor girl, who was probably your age, speed right to it, and then was running as fast as she can, missed the whole thing, and just and I can still hear
Good job,
the
Jennifer. I
wind,
didn't
all the
see
wind
it.
coming
I don't
out.
remember.
Boom, hits it super hard, and I'm just like, whoa. And then she's crying, and she's out of breath, and she's crying, and she's crying, and then all the people are trying to help her up, and they go, "You have one more attempt." And so like she gets, and she goes, I don't want to. And then so I was just like, oh my gosh, that was crazy that I watched that.
Trey like mentions that all the time. Oh, it's
And
over.
every 4 years, I
Pause.
think,
All the
sorry,
time.
go
He'll always be like, remember that girl? And I swear I never saw it, never saw it. But I believe it. Never saw it. He always brings it up. Hilarious.
so I bring that story up because that is like drilled into my brain, and I can still see it now. Like right now, I'm looking at it. I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at this moment that happened. And every time I see gymnastics, I think of that moment. I think of that poor woman. I know, how old was I? 8,
Yeah, I was
right? That was before we moved.
yeah, so like
'Cause-
8, 7.
Yeah, I was like
Yeah.
8.
Yeah,
Think of you
that's
as an 8-year-old
prime
seeing
brain
something. Yeah,
series
just
time.
stuck in that steel trap. Anyway, but yeah, every 4 years, like when there's gymnastics, which is the only time I watch it,
Yeah,
I think of that particular woman.
remember that. So a few
But
months
then-
ago, maybe like a week or two, I don't know, just a little bit ago, um, I we I was I'm taking like a gymnastics class now as an adult. It's so fun. And I am chatting. I met this girl there. She's my age. We competed at the same time and different gyms, same levels. We knew all the same competition or compulsory like dances,
Shut
floor
up.
routines, beam routines, all the same things. And we're chatting and we're just like, we're practicing the vault. We're going. And she's like, man, I will never forget that one time
No.
at a competition where I just biffed it and I ran right into the ball. And
No. You're kidding. You're kidding me.
I
It has.
died.
Is it her?
It has
We don't
to be
know.
her. It's got to be her because she like we had
Who
this
else?
competitions. It was too
I think in the history of the horse, only one person has done that. So it's got to be her, right?
Well, it was funny because the day before that, like they were talking about the girls who had done that. They had just run right into the horse.
Just running.
Yeah. So
It's
she
like a
was
cartoon where there's like a woman-shaped hole in the horse. I keep calling a horse the vault. Pommel horse?
we don't call it, I don't think they call it the horse anymore because they changed it. It's like now it's like a vault table because it's like bigger.
Oh.
So yeah. But the worst part about her telling me that is like I wanted to laugh so hard, but it was like
Why didn't you tell her? You're like, my brother saw something like that, and he
I-
talks about it constantly.
it was like sometimes you can, but I had to read the room and it was like, oh, I don't think this is gonna go over well if I say
You're like, little did you know,
my brother
my
was
brother-
totally there. Yeah.
in 1992,
He brings up this same
Yeah.
thing, and I think it's you. Like I
We're gonna-
I died. It was
you were sitting there going like this is great content for my podcast.
oh yeah.
And,
I'm like, I wish Trey was here right now. He would know exactly.
no, and I would
But yeah.
hug her and be like, it's okay, you have a second attempt. I'd let her know, like, we're still waiting.
Sure, and
You
then,
didn't
like,
do it.
Yeah,
You
why
took an
didn't you
L?
take
Come
it?
on.
You should have totally done it. That's so
Yeah, you should have just like, here, give me a second. Get back up there, like Carrie Strug.
Oh, a different time. But Trey was a really
Yeah, man.
good like sport with gymnastics. I feel like I taught him all of my routines. I taught him tumbling. Like he just was like all in it. And he
Oh, I can run a
forgot.
back handspring like the best of them.
Well, he still attempted it. He didn't have fear. But the best was
Oh, I
that
could
you
do it.
remembered-
She's saying I couldn't do it.
you remembered the body wave.
It was the best one ever.
I totally forgot that. Yeah.
I showed it to Scout yesterday.
Yeah.
I taught her.
Yeah.
Any opportunity Trey has to use his gymnastics moves that he learned from you, Ashley, I see him use it.
Well, sometimes you watch and you're like, I couldn't do that. And you're like, I could do that though. Come on. Twirls.
Trills. The
That
trills.
was, that was
Yeah.
awkward move.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that story is a complete story now. It's the best.
I don't know. You have to go. Are you going to see her again? How often do you go to?
Yeah, we're friends.
How
We
often do you go
talk
to
all the
geriatric
time.
gymnastics?
Yeah, twice a week. So I'll see her
Jeez.
tomorrow and I'll yeah.
You guys have a sauna and an ice bath in that gym? Because
We should totally get an
I
ice,
think
whatever.
next time you send a video, I'm just gonna send a video of like knees popping
Cryogenic.
every time you do a flip.
Yeah. No, I
How's-
actually I didn't go last time because my back was hurting. I was like, I bent over and my back went just. I'm like, oh, I know this feeling. So, yeah, definitely different now.
No
but
flips today.
Huh?
You're like, no flips today.
No,
Sorry,
I
coach.
babe.
You like check in.
Yeah,
You're like, sorry, coach. I'm old.
I'm old. Not happening. So, yeah.
You're like, if you remember 9/11, you're gonna be sore tomorrow. Cut that joke out,
Okay,
editor. Thank you.
you got it.
I don't know 9/11 joke.
So, Trey, what is
Yeah.
your life experience? What do you want to share other than, I mean, your vault one, your vault story could be your life experience.
My life experience, like a moment going off of what Heidi. I'm a little scared to share this story because it was a moment for me, but it was also a very difficult moment for Heidi.
Oh,
She knows. Maybe she doesn't, but she does. So the move here to Salt Lake was a step that I took in my career that was an unknown.
Mhm.
And I'm also making 3 other human beings, 2 of which had no idea what was going on, to make this huge move and to just leave everything that I had kind of built and been a part of for my entire life and come up to Salt Lake City to do a job. And it was like 6 months before the pandemic too,
Oh yeah.
which was a little nerve-wracking. Everything about it was scary and exciting and scary and scary and exciting, but then also we threw in like a 5-day-old baby in the mix. So
I was gonna say, don't forget Roman being born.
no, that was the hard part. That was
But I feel like important context is Ashley was the one that drove us here. Ashley drove me and the kids here because I couldn't drive.
excuse me, this is my story.
It's just saying you have to
No,
add that.
I didn't
No,
want to say
yeah,
it,
and
but
I
I'm
was
like, I'm fresh from
yeah.
back surgery like a month, but I'm still on my pain pills, and I'm like, yeah, I'll drive you.
I look back and I'm like, both of us should not have been in that car alone.
Oh yeah, that I mean I was taking a trailer, right? This is my second trip going up there. I took a whole U-Haul up there and I was flooring it going 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It took like 8 hours to get here, and Heidi's wonderful family was waiting, and she kept texting me like they're waiting, and I was like, I'm in Beaver. I got like 3 hours. And I was like, I am putting it to the metal. Anyway, to give context to anyone else who doesn't know the story, I was working in I'd studied film at UNLV. I always wanted to be a director, always wanted to make movies. It was a very difficult path, like always, because everyone's wanting to do it, and you have to, work really hard, and it's not over for my life yet. I was working, but I was working in news at the time, and I was technical directing, and I was editing, and I was a cameraman. So I was doing 3 different things, and I was working at NBC. I was working for Telemundo, which was owned by NBC. So I was at NBC corporate, and I was trying to move up in NBC and all that stuff. And uh, well, like when we had Fallon, Heidi was working on a campaign, and so she had to go back to work pretty quickly. And since I was working at NBC, it had it had a long paternity leave if you say that you're the primary caregiver. And so what we decided to do was make me the primary caregiver so I can have that long leave so she can get right into a Senate race that she was working on. And so Fallon and I, when she was just born, we hung out for like 3 months. Just the 2 of us. We watched all of Cheers. Um, that was a great moment for me and Fallon. I love that time. She does not nap. when I was with her. She doesn't nap like every other
Still.
day. I was like, I'm just holding her. I don't know what to do. It was my first time being with a newborn. Anyway, while I was out, Telemundo fired all the leadership at Telemundo. Like they came in and washed everything out. So I came back and it was brand new leadership and they didn't know who I was, where I came from. It was just like this guy just shows up. And so it was kind of evident that they were trying to push me out because they were trying to get their people involved. And then
Yeah.
so I was just like, I don't know how long it's gonna last. And so still trying to apply for other positions within NBC to move around and I just wouldn't get any, I was talking to HR and never got anything. And they're like, you need to get a recommendation from your GM and from your news director. And they're like, okay. They never really were helpful. And then one day Heidi was like, I'm pregnant again. I was like, yes, this was great.
Fallon was 3 months old when I found out I was pregnant with Roman.
Yeah, so that was getting crazy time. It was a very difficult time. Anyway, so not difficult time, that was exciting. I was excited. Were you excited?
That part was fun.
Did you like that?
Yeah, but let's talk about
Let's talk about me. Okay, anyway. Um so it was kind of like, okay, I think I have to take this long leave again because Heidi was still working and she didn't have any leave because she worked for herself.
Right.
And so it was going to be more evident. It was more advantageous for us to do it this way so that we can have someone stay with both kids. And so I was gonna do that. And then they were like, oh, also by the way, your position is going to be dissolved and we're going to create a new position that you'll have, but you just need to apply for it. It's just formalities and all this stuff. And I was like, okay. And so I started filling it out and I got a call from corporate and they're like, you're gonna get interviewed by your manager and then go from there. Okay. And then all of a sudden, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I didn't get anything. We're like, what's going on? Five of us had just realized they were not gonna hire us back on. And so at like I knew that was gonna happen. And so I told Heidi I'm gonna quit. This is it. We gotta do something else. We gotta figure something else out, and we were like, that's gonna be fine, it's gonna be great. Heidi was talking to her lovely grandmother right after that, and she had said, yeah, Trey's decided he's gonna quit the job and we're gonna look and it's like we're not gonna just stay in Las Vegas. We also had just bought a house too. Yeah, we had a house for a year. We had Fallon and Roman was coming. And um sorry, it was a very long story.
No, I think it's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, so then Heidi's grandmother was like yeah, and Heidi was like, we don't really care where we're gonna go. We're open to moving anywhere. Like we're just kind of just seeing what's out there in the world.
Yeah.
Even though we're kind of rooted here, we're gonna look. And so Heidi's grandmother sent an email to
You're
her.
like, I'm gonna be open to anything.
Yeah, Heidi's grandmother sent an email to the whole family and said, Trey just talked to Heidi, and Trey wants to quit his job and move to Salt Lake City. And like that was not even Heidi even told me one time, I'll go anywhere in the world except Salt Lake City. And that's what I was like, how about West Jordan?
Oh, that's funny.
every time in my life I have said that, Ashley, I have moved to that place. I have learned to stop saying that. I said that about BYU, Idaho. I never wanted to go there, ended up there. I said that about Las Vegas, ended up there. I said it about Salt Lake City. So I am done saying that phrase because
You're not even putting it out there.
yes, can't.
I will go anywhere in the world except Italy.
Yeah, play
I will move.
a little better on that
Lake
one.
Cuomo is not for me. Sorry, George Clooney. Neighbors, no way, Jose.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, that was funny. Heidi was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that." Blah, blah. Her uncle called me and he was like, "Here's what you got to do. You got to set up you got to do a 2-minute elevator pitch of what you do. You got to update this LinkedIn." And he was like coaching me because that's what he does.
Yeah.
And then he called me a week later and he was like, "You know what? There's this really cool filmmaker that is in my stake. Maybe you should talk to him and figure out what, like what next steps is or what he should do. And he can maybe he can offer some advice."
Yeah.
And it was solely out of advice. And so Glenn connected me with this guy and Glenn made it clear that like, hey, I just want you to talk to him and just, he's a filmmaker and he's just trying to look for a job. And so I talked to him for a very long time and we talked about a lot of cool things. He was talking about cool things. And then he was like, well, I need some help editing some stuff. Can I send you something? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so he sent me this crazy project that was like 2 terabytes of stuff. And he was like, no direction. Right. And so I was like, And okay, I was like, oh, whatever you want. And so he sent me, very little things. I sent them what, like, it would be nice if you interviewed the guy or something, or I think I need a little bit more. And he had someone else go out and film that guy explain what was happening. It's like it was a long story.
Like
Anyways,
storytelling. You were editing like a
well, I was
story.
just editing something for him that he was, yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, this is for a YouTube thing that we're kind of working on with this guy,
I remember it was like skydiving, right?
Yeah, it was about this guy who has an airplane, and Red Bull had asked him if
Yeah,
they could
Red
have
Bull.
people jump out and grab the plane. So two people grabbed the plane from their squirrel suits.
That's
And so
crazy.
I kind of had to do this behind the scene of this YouTube video or this Red Bull video that they did.
Yeah.
And so I worked on it for a very long time. And then finally he's like, "Can I see it?" And I was like, "Whatever, here you go." And I just sent it to him.
Whatever.
And I was like, I was like, let go and let God. Because I didn't think it was that good, but it was also so much stuff. And I just did my darndest and I sent it to him. And then he was like, "This is exactly what I'm looking for. I know we talked about this
Oh.
in the past that you're willing to relocate. I can't give you any more money than what you're making right now. So
Mhm.
if you're okay to relocate to Salt Lake, I'd love to have you." And I was like, "What?" And so we were
Is-
like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
And so we like sold our house. We looked for a house up here. Like we came up here and looked for a place. We had no idea where to go. And
Mhm.
we're like ended up being like, "Well, I guess it's only 30 minutes away." I'm used to driving 30 minutes, and
Right.
real estate was difficult. We're just gonna rent, and we didn't sell our house. We had to rent out our house. Um, and we made all these changes. And I told him, let me talk to my wife. And I said, my wife is 4 months pregnant, 5 months pregnant. Um, and would it be okay if I come up after the kid so we don't have to change doctors?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And in that like 4 month period, he had gotten like three big projects that we're still working on today, 5 years later, that kind of define his company at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he kind of forgot I was coming for a minute, and I was like, "Hey, I'm ready to come. Got my kid." And he's like, I was trying to
You're
call him
thinking
for, but he was
about
so
me?
busy, just
Yeah.
kind of check in. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well." And then it was kind of like, "Well," he's like, "I do have work for you, but I can promise you full time through December. Um, but other than that, we don't know what's going to happen, you
Mm-hmm.
know." He's
Yeah.
like, "And we don't know what happens for all of it because it's all season ones of stuff." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh no, do."
What have I
And
done?
I was like, "Well, we're coming up anyway."
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we had a 2 month overlap where we had the renters move in and we didn't move, and we hadn't had Roman yet. Heidi hadn't. I was just watching. And so we lived with mom and dad for 2 months in the heat with a 1 year old and a 9 month pregnant
Oh.
Polish lady who's not familiar with heat. And and I was like, "We're gonna do this," and it was a decision that I made for the. Heidi was always on board with it.
Yeah.
She was always there. She's always supportive, and she's not one to back down from a challenge
Or an opportunity.
or an opportunity. And so I think a lot of the time it's like her doing that was like, "This is an opportunity to help you move, and it is going to be hard and it's rough, but it's just something we're going to do. This is what you do in this life."
What
And
else do
so
you do? Yeah, it's gonna
yeah,
be, yeah.
yeah. And so we had Roman. We moved up. We started working. I started working my butt off, but the problem was I was working constantly because I was trying to make sure that I still had a job
Right.
after that time. And then I was finishing editing the episode. Like all the stuff came in, and I would stay late and edit, and I was just be on an island and just try to get all these edits done for the show.
Yeah.
And they really liked it, and they asked me to like, "Would you want to do this stuff and this and this?" And I was like, "Yes, I'll do anything you want,"
Mhm.
just so that I can stay in it. Um and I wanted them to like me. Then also it was like I was moved into a different position than editing. I was overseeing some edits and making sure the schedules got out and all that stuff,
Yeah.
which turned out to be a great move at that time because then COVID hit. And so I was the only one at the office during COVID, um, making sure everything everything got to the client on time, and
Right.
working. And we were in between supervisors and stuff like that. And so I just kind of for a year was by myself, and they would just be like, "Okay, we brought you some Diet Dr. Pepper," and they just drop it off, and then slowly
Their
people started to
masks
come
on
back to
their
the office.
face, like, don't
Yeah,
touch
yeah.
me. Yeah.
So it
Oh
was
my gosh.
that was a crazy. It was, crazy year. But anyway,
The time.
um, I was having a blast, and then about 2 years later, Heidi Heidi told me that that was the hardest time in her life
Oh,
because,
I
like she said, she was just had a baby and had Fallon, but also was doing her own stuff as well.
right. And supporting you.
Yeah. Can I say too, I call those my dark days
Yeah,
because they were so
yeah.
dark and hard, but also it was a 2020 election cycle. And for everybody that's listening,
What happened that
you
year?
know how busy that election cycle was, and it never ended. It didn't even end after the election was over because of all, yes. And so luckily though, that then meant that work went very well for me, but it meant that I was at home with two tiny babies, no childcare, and full-time job. And
And not me because I was working.
yeah, and Trey was away. So that is not good for a woman's mental health or for anybody's mental health. So I
Yeah.
was supportive of Trey, but I also looking back, I'm like, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it again if I don't know how to say it. Like I want to support you, but
Would you, if you could go back in time and see that Heidi barely pregnant, what would you tell her?
wait, back in time when I found out I was pregnant with Roman.
Yeah, right before I was like, we have this opportunity.
So that I would all do again. I just think part of me wonders if I tried to reach out to everybody I possibly could during that time to like get support, but like it was hard. Like childcare is hard. That is the hardest part of parenting, in my opinion. And when you don't have family, I mean, I had extended family, and luckily I had like some cousins I could pay to do childcare
Yeah.
until we found consistent childcare. But anyway, I guess I would do it over again, but there are things that I would probably try to do differently for my mental health. But luckily, lots of good people and community
Yeah.
were helpful.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like that's too, like, that's part of the process. It's like you look back on that and you're like, I learned from that experience. Maybe you wouldn't have taken it on, but at that time you had no choice. That was like what you had the kids, you're like doing the things, and Trey's doing this new job and you want to be supportive. Yeah. And it like teaches you more than, I don't know. That's
I
life.
think yeah, it totally taught me empathy, right? Like I had never understood like why women, you know, and not to get political, but like the desperation that a woman feels to like make certain choices in her life. Like I felt it at that moment and then could understand and empathize with someone who felt that level of desperation. And I'm like privileged. Like I live a life of beauty
Yeah.
and luxury compared to so many others. But
So like kind of
um
explain that. What do you mean? Like the like a woman's level of desperation, like as far as what?
yeah, so I mean I don't mean
You
to
can
make this
get political,
political.
it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean to make it political,
I
but when
know,
it
it's
comes
okay.
to growing up, I looked at things really black and white. And that's another thing I feel like I learned living in New York City was all the different types of people and how they lived their lives and how, especially within the church that we're members of, right? How different members lived their life within the church. That there was no right or wrong way to be a lover of Christ and to be someone who shares his love and his light.
Yeah.
And I had kind of come from a very black and white background where there's right and there's wrong, right? There's true and there's false. And then as I grew and had, my experience in New York and then this as a mother, I saw why there would be women who felt like it was better for their families to have abortions, for example, and how they just felt like they were on the very last of it all and just couldn't possibly take care of another human or take care of themselves. And they're just so desperate. Granted, I am not someone who would make that choice, but I also felt like I could see why in those darkest days of desperation why someone would feel like that was the best thing for their family. And um and so it just taught me a lot about empathy but it also taught me I think about this a lot because now I'm starting on a startup of my own and I'm thinking how I'm going to cash those chips in with Trey someday and how it's going to be his turn to sacrifice everything on his side for the family to support me and how that's just a really important part of relationships but I'm hoping that empathy that I struggle with. I don't feel like I'm a natural empath, but I feel like it taught me and I'm hoping that when that day does come that then I can treat him in a way and recognize when he's in a moment of desperation and try to think of what I can do to support that and have a better balance between us. And not that he did anything wrong. I just think we were young in our marriage and immature in partnership and had never done that before. And so we had a lot to learn.
Yeah, and I feel like too when Trey was like sharing that story, you could kind of feel that he was he didn't want to have to pull you guys away from like where you were. You had a house, you had your doctors and everything, but he also wanted to take this opportunity, which you were supportive of him, and he was also afraid of. So that was like a lot of things happening in like kind of a big tornado. So yeah, that'll be fun to kind of see what comes next and how that goes from there. Because you can't always do it perfectly the first time, but you
No.
can learn from it for the next time. Because I think empathy, like I get that too, because I never understood pain from people until I had my back pain. Because I was like, suck it up, you're fine. What are you talking about? So it's like
Yeah.
empathy is a great lesson in life because you don't know what someone else is feeling.
Don't you feel like chronic pain is the biggest empathizer? I just feel like Ashley had her chronic pain, and I had such a minute experience with chronic pain with my tailbone for such a short period of time. But when I did, I just felt for you, Ashley. And I was like, I can't believe she's had to do this for so long.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think of that too, of like, it's not just physical, emotional, pain. It can be emotional. And I think of that with my dark days, right? Where
Mhm.
it was like it's pain. And that's why I think like life is so beautiful, is God sent us here so we could experience these things that we could not otherwise have learned, right? Like you could be told to learn empathy, but really you can't practice empathy until you've had these experiences. And so I just think that it's so powerful.
The best part of that whole story, and I hope that the statute of limitations is over on this, is that I started working right when Roman was born, and I was still the primary caregiver. And then 4 months, I talked to a lot of people. They can't prove it, and it's too late. It's way too far. It's 5 years. And then right after that, they were like, "Okay, so you're getting a severance package because you didn't get the job." And I was like 4 months into Salt Lake, and I was like, "Okay." And they gave me like 6 months severance. So I was like, that was great. That was a great time. And I was like, I was nervous at the time, but I also didn't feel bad because
They screwed you over.
they screwed me over,
Yeah.
and I had made it known that I wanted to have a career there. And I was doing a lot. I was doing three different jobs.
Yeah,
Anyways,
you're
that's
like, I
that's just
want this to be my like I want
yeah,
to take roots here and do this thing. Oh yeah, that's hard.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it was also like when I was talking to Marty, who I work for now, he told me he's like, if you want to work for a place that values people, and I was like, oh man, you're saying the right things, you
Yeah.
know,
You
and they do,
can't like not take this
yeah,
opportunity. It felt like so good and perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, that's oh I love
hmm
that. Yeah.
yep,
It's interesting to hear like both of you guys. I feel like you share things with the family, but not like all the details. So I love hearing
oh
all
yeah,
the details that I didn't really know at the time. And I mean, that's fine. That's personal to you guys because you're making your life decisions and like what's best for you guys. And sometimes I think if you tell family, they'll like have an emotional response because they just want to keep you close to them. So
yeah. Well, I
you're
mean, to
like
be fair,
doing your thing and going
yeah,
there.
Heidi didn't share that time at that moment with me, like she was going through that hard time, and I saw it was difficult, but I was like, she was very upbeat
Right. She
and
didn't want like I
supportive and
feel
did the things, and I tried to
yeah.
come home. There was times where I would go to work before Roman woke up, and I'd come home and he'd be already asleep. And I
Hmm.
was like, "Ugh, that's annoying." And Heidi's like, "I was with him the whole time." Like, I mean, he was the best little baby boy, but
Right.
I had that so much time with Fallon, and I didn't have that much time with Roman at that young age, and
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I can feel that.
Mm.
um, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had more time with Roman. But like he's 5 and he jumps on. And we read tornadoes today. Like I'm not, you know, I,
Yeah.
the decisions we talk about. This is supposed to be about decisions in our life, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about the move to Salt Lake, and Heidi talked about her move. But for me, the biggest decision was marrying Heidi. And I'm not saying that because she just talked about how like I made her dark days and she's ready to collect. But it really is like I wouldn't have
Noted.
had all of these things that have happened in my life have happened the time after the time I met Heidi.
Hmm.
Like everything that so it's like making that decision to marry Heidi, although I knew it was the right decision, I still was
Right.
like, I gotta wait a year before I marry you.
It's okay.
It's okay now. We don't talk about that. Anyway, I was just kidding.
No,
That
I'm
is
not mad about it. I was more gonna just say, just have to throw in a postpartum depression thing
okay.
here for a second
Yes.
because
Throw
I
it.
didn't I didn't really know what was happening to me when it was happening.
Mhm.
And I think that's the hardest part of postpartum depression is you're just not really aware. And I remember distinctly times when we would go and travel to your parents' house because I felt so like we have to do this. It's so important to be the family. It was so incredibly difficult on me. And looking back, I shouldn't have done it. I should have just been real and said, I love you guys so much. I am going through the hardest time. I just don't even think I can do it. But that's when Trey and I would fight the most because I wasn't communicating with him very well beforehand of like, hey, I am just in over my head. I can barely take another step forward, like,
Yeah.
let alone driving two babies down and back in a 48-hour window, you know?
Right.
Um, but I would just say, like, sometimes you don't really know you're in it. So that's why you're not sharing it. But then you look back and realize that that's what it was. And like, I wish I would have known, but I didn't know.
But that I feel like for me, going through like a lot of years of therapy, I've become more connected to my emotions. And so I'm more able to like explain what I'm feeling. And for the longest time, I had no idea. I was like, oh, that's why I felt like out of place in this place because I have a little bit of anxiety, and that's okay. But it's like you blame yourself and like second guess yourself and think about all these things that you're like, why am I doing this? I should be doing that. I should be not doing this. And so it's really, it's a life, like it's a process of learning how to like actually communicate your emotions and how you're feeling and that it's okay. Like emotions are good and how you feel is valid. So I love that.
Mhm.
Well, when you make a life decision, it's not easy.
Right. No matter
And
what you
and
do, even if it's
and
like you
so
said, it's the right thing, like,
even though you know it's the right and like what Heidi was
yeah,
saying about like she understands, like empathizes more with people. And I think you learn that and that's the wisdom you come with. And you can say like you don't just say like, well, I did it, you can do it. You say, yeah, it's hard, and here's what you do. Here's what you need to do. Make sure that and
Or
like
how can I help you?
yeah, how can I help you? Or at least you can see somebody struggling and be like, we're gonna help. And Heidi's always been good about that, of helping others around
yeah,
almost to a fault where I'm like, you gotta stay. Like, we don't have enough money to buy them all these things, like uh um but yeah, and I don't know. It's just a lot of things where we believe that you gotta do things yourself, but also you gotta help others and there's no luck. It's fortunate. Like people are fortunate. People work hard for their things, and there's a lot of stuff that's in your way. Like Heidi's talking about being ping ponged around, or no, what was it?
Mhm. Pinball. Ping
Pinballed,
pong.
pinballed around to the right place.
Painful.
And that's just and what I've seen in Heidi is that she's pinballed to the right place because she takes every opportunity and she goes 110% in those opportunities. Like when she
Yeah.
got that opportunity in college,
Mhm.
right out of college, to work for um
Nielsen.
well, not after
Oh,
after your master's, when you got that your
yeah,
your dream job.
yeah.
The guy was that she worked with was a little bit of a mess business wise, and she took over and she invoiced the people, and she went in and took initiative and did all this stuff, and that propelled her to the next place, to the next place, the next. And so she took every opportunity, and it's been inspiring for me to watch too firsthand, to see that and be like, you take every opportunity. And I always think about that, and you take that, and then you're okay being kind of a fish out of water in a new experience, and like, I'm gonna make some mistakes, but I got to do it, and this has to get done. You have to invoice them. Why aren't you invoicing?
Yeah.
And then people are like, you know what you're doing. And in this position that she's in right now, I know that she's gonna come out. There's like a lot of things that are happening on two sides, on the job that she has now and on entertainment, or her startup. Sorry, I didn't mean to say. Yeah. And I have all the confidence in the world in her that she was going to come out on top on both things, because she's hardworking, she's thorough, she has two legal pads, she has two computers, she has everything going on. She has, I'm watching her do these things, and it's inspiring to me to see it, but also like she takes every opportunity, and she's thorough and resourceful.
So
She's
it's
scrappy.
it's
And
like
get out of her
anything,
way if you make her mad. No, just kidding. She's very
yeah,
sweet.
like anything that's in the future, like she can do it because she's already demonstrated that she can do
Yeah.
that from the
Yeah,
past.
'cause it-
So,
yeah. And she's like, there's a lot of stress that comes with the job because she still is kind of in politics a little bit, and
right.
it's an election year, and there's a lot of stress going on, and I'm like, and I'm trying to be supportive. I mean, I am supportive, but I'm also like, she's got this. Like, I have all the confidence in the
But
world in
that's
her
what she needs. Like
because
she needs
that's
support
yes,
because you can't be success all on your own. Anyone that's successful
yeah.
has someone that's supportive to them in their corner. And
I will take that compliment. Thank you.
yes,
No, I'm just saying that like we talk about opportunity it takes, and I just want to take this time to say that
yeah.
she dives in and she goes full, and that's what you need to do.
This does not need to be the Heidi cheerleader show, but I appreciate both of you being my cheerleaders. I feel like Ashley's been a great cheerleader too, like always is a great cheerleader. And I love that about you, Ashley. I feel like too that comes from that empathy of, those life experiences and just instead of criticizing people or talking about them behind their backs, like just supporting and, anyway, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's like when you see where you want to get to, only the people that don't want you to get there are going to criticize you. If people want you to also get where you want to go, they're going to help you get there. Like they're not going to pull you down because that says more about them than it does about you.
I
It's
love that have you heard that quote that says don't take advice or don't take criticism from someone who you would never go to for advice.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like I would never go to that person for advice, so why would I take their criticism?
Exactly.
And yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, no, I appreciate you having us on, Ash. Like it was really good for me to be thinking about. I I Trey will tell you I was way overthinking this. Like I was like I can't even think of one memory I even have in my entire life, and then I just kept coming back to New York and the word opportunity of just jumping in. You just take any opportunity that comes your way and never being too good to do anything. And
I love that.
it
No,
just yeah.
I feel like it's very vague and open, and so I understand, but I think that's part of why I wanted it to be like that because then you can really think about it and like really be, I don't know, pondering in your head, like what have I really looked back on? Because I feel like we go through these experiences and sometimes we don't take the time to be like, what did I learn from that? And then you've learned it and you've realized how many times you've like used it in your life going forward. And whether it's a new job, a new baby, a new city, anything like that, you're always
Or
using
all of the above at
all
once.
of the above in your case. Yeah, so that was like a perfect encapsulation of both of your experiences. So thank you guys for sharing and thank you for coming and being here today. I always enjoy chit-chatting.
Thanks for having us. Sorry about the microphone snafus.
It was absolutely perfect. So
Were you
from
recording
here,
this last part?
we shall say what?
I was gonna say, were you recording?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not recorded. It's always a hard one when we say goodbye and then it's like, don't go anywhere.
Do you want
Goodbye,
me to say
but
goodbye?
then goodbye.
Okay.
So
Do we make it a formal
goodbye, thank
goodbye?
you.
Wait, do you want us? Goodbye.
Goodbye. Just say goodbye. Like
Bye.
Goodbye.